Okay, I think I'm ready. Welcome everyone to session number 238 of Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles. Alrighty, thanks for being here. Today we are in chapter 30, still in chapter 30, the next to last chapter, which is entitled The New Beginning. And we will concentrate on section 7, Roman numeral 7, VII, entitled The New Interpretation. Okay. So, and I have a little note here that says purpose. We give a different purpose to the world now. We have a new interpretation, our perceptions are reinterpreted. Okay. And the key to it all will be what we call the Holy Spirit in the Course in Miracles. Right. Otherwise, it's the memory of who you are, the place where love resides, the place where the memory is of oneness. Right? We refer to that in the Christian terms, Holy Spirit. Right? It's just in my forays into the cyber world, I see people misconstruing what the Course says, and what are you going to do? And being thrown off by the language. I could see that happening, right? They use Christian terminology, right? But it is definitely, if anything, it's a correction for a couple thousand years of Christian thought. All right. That being said, I'm going to get off into an aside here. This is entitled The New Interpretation. Paragraph 1. Would God have left the meaning of the world to your interpretation? If he had, it has no meaning. For it cannot be that meaning changes constantly and yet is true. The Holy Spirit looks upon the world as with one purpose, changelessly established. And no situation can affect its aim, but must be in accord with it. For only if its aim could change with every situation could each one be open to interpretation, which is different every time you think of it. You add an element into the script you write every minute in the day, and all that happens now means something else. You take away another element, and every meaning shifts accordingly. Jesus at one point in the text refers to that we have to make constant adjustments. We're always changing, right? Always changing. Got to change this, got to change that. And you change it on the fly, as we say, as you're going along, right? You add an element into the script you write for every minute of the day. Right? And all that happens now means something else. So we change. Right? We adapt. And what we're adapting to and changing about is the initial change we thought had happened when we separated from the oneness. After we believe we separated from the oneness, we've got to constantly adapt. We've got to adapt to what's around us. This is why Jesus is reassuring us in this little question here. Would God have left the meaning of the world to your interpretation? So, would God have left it to me, my interpretation, which is founded on the idea of separation from the oneness? Right? And with that foundation, everything has no meaning, he says. If God left it up to me, everything has no meaning. This is because it cannot be that meaning changes constantly. Right? If the world means anything, it has to be a constant. Something has to be constant. For it cannot be that meaning changes constantly and yet is true. Then he gives us the key, the Holy Spirit, right? The memory of who you are. Right? The Holy Spirit looks upon the world as with one purpose, changelessly established, and no situation can affect its aim, but must be in accord with it. For only if its aim could change with every situation could each one be open to interpretation, which is different every time you think of it. What he's telling us is that the Holy Spirit has one purpose, is to help us to remember the oneness. And in the dream, that's the process of forgiveness. The process of forgiveness helps us to remember that we are not separated. There is only one mind, and that mind never left the mind that thought of it. It never sinned. There is only innocence. So the Holy Spirit looks upon the world as with one purpose. Everything can be used to help us get back to the oneness if we unite with the memory of who we are. The Holy Spirit, your higher self, right? Symbolized by Jesus, right? Using all those Christian terms that either revile, people revolt. I'm tired of that. It's just one of the things you have to get past if the course is for you. Right? If not, there are 1,000 ways home. Many, many ways home. Right? He says in paragraph 1, sentence 7, you add an element into the script you write for every minute in the day. We're constantly trying to figure out what to do next. Right? I always get the image of the shrew, right? A little rodent, mouse type of animal, shrew. I believe it doesn't live more than 48 hours. I could be wrong, of course. I always tell people, check that. But that's what I have in my mind. And what it does is it constantly looks to eat and mate so that the shrew can go on. The shrew line can survive. But it's constantly, you got 48 hours. You're constantly adding an element into the script you write for every minute of the day. And all that happens now means something else. I got to do this, I got to do that. And I become aware of this. I have to laugh at this. I'm laughing at myself because with my aging process, I don't know if it's the aging process or it's just part of my personality that's always been there, is that inability to focus for too long on something. Like, I got to do this, I got to do that. Right? And all that happens now means something else. Right? You take away another element and every meaning shifts accordingly. Right? You take away one thing, another, that means everything shifts. It's just a very poetic way of, a very accurate way of describing our minute-to-minute existences. The paragraph 2, it's a constant adjustment, right? Paragraph 2, what do your scripts reflect except your plans for what the day should be? And thus you judge disaster and success, advance, retreat, and gain and loss. These judgments all are made according to the roles the script assigns. The fact they have no meaning in themselves is demonstrated by the ease with which these labels change with other judgments made on different aspects of experience. And then, in looking back, you think you see another meaning in what went on before. What have you really done except to show there was no meaning there? But you assigned a meaning in the light of goals that change, and every meaning shifting as they change. I can look back in my life, I mean, even as a very young boy, like preteen, I wanted this, I wanted that. I wanted a BB gun. My father said, no way. You are not getting that. I can remember the rage that I went into. I was so angry. So angry. That was so important to me. Right? But that was just an idea, a plan of how my day should be. I should have a BB gun. Right? Or another instant where I used to love it when my father would take me with him on Wednesday nights. We would drive to Brooklyn, and he would meet up with his old friends in the Knights of Columbus, and they would go bowling. And there's the men bowling, joking and drinking and smoking and doing 1950s men things, And I loved it. I loved hanging out. Of course, having a hot dog, whatever, soda, whatever, and watching them bowl. And then, but he didn't want to take me all the time. And one day he said, no, you can't go tonight. Well, I went into a rage. And remembering those rages, that's just as an aside, I could see how self-destructive my anger was, believe me, in retrospect, okay? All right? But he says, but what do your scripts reflect? My script was that I'm going bowling with my father. He says, that's the plans for what the day should be. All right? And thus, you judge disaster and success, advance, retreat, and gain and loss. It was a disaster. My script didn't turn out to be the way I saw it. Right? And these judgments are all made according to the roles the script assigns. And as I progress through my life, I can look at my own history and just see certain things were very important to me at certain times. Very important to me. Right? Hanging out with my friends. And I don't know what the occasion was, but I remember my father explaining to me that as you get older, your friends are going to drift away. And let me tell you, at one point, boom, they were gone. Maybe 4 or 5 years after he had told me that. But in that instant, in that moment, it was so important. Right? Oh my goodness. Right? And what do your scripts reflect in paragraph 2? Except your plans for what the day should be. Right? And these judgments are all made according to the roles that the script assigns. Right? What kind of self-image do you have? The fact they have no meaning in themselves is demonstrated by the ease with which these labels change with other judgments made on different aspects of experience. So as we get older, as we quote-unquote mature, right, you see that even during the course of the day, something can be very important and then not. Right? And he says that demonstrates really, they really are meaningless. What I thought was so meaningful I don't really care anymore. You know, I don't really care. Right? And then in looking back, he says, paragraph 2, sentence 5, you think you see another meaning in what went on before. Everything's constantly changing. What have you really done except to show there was no meaning there? Everything is ultimately meaningless. Right? We're not asking you to jump to that conclusion. Just asking to look. Just look. But don't look by yourself. Jesus is going to tell you that in the last paragraph. Look with the love of God around you, with the Holy Spirit around you. Immerse yourself in that love. And then ask, help me to see this. And don't look at it yourself. You can check out your whole life. You can check out your whole day with a different interpretation of what's meaningful and what's meaningless. Right? This is so. What's happened is that you have assigned a meaning in the light of the goals that change, and with every meaning shifting as they change. So, you know, I need this, I got to get that. The goals change, you know. Then he tells us in paragraph 3 how to get out of this uncertainty, how to get out of this chaos. Because what he's really describing in my mind is just chaos. It's chaotic. Everything changes. Nothing is certain. Right? So he says in paragraph 3, only a constant purpose can endow events with stable meaning. Let that sink in. Only a constant purpose can endow events with stable meaning. But it must accord one meaning to them all. Right? You can't have all different meanings. There's only one meaning. If they are given different meanings, it must be that they reflect but different purposes. And this is all the meaning that they have. Can this be meaning? Right? He's playing with the words, making us slow down again. Can this be meaning? Can confusion be what meaning means? Perception cannot be in constant flux. And making allowance for stability. All right. I lost my place. Sorry, folks. Perception cannot be in constant flux and make allowance for stability of meaning everywhere. Fear is a judgment never justified. Its presence has no meaning but to show you wrote a fearful script and are afraid accordingly. But not because the thing you fear has fearful meaning in itself. Okay. So let's go back to the beginning of that paragraph. Only a constant purpose can endow events with stable meaning. And we're going to go to reference the Holy Spirit, right? Whose constant purpose is to bring us to the awareness of the oneness. That's the purpose. We call that forgiveness here in the dream of form. So we practice forgiveness because it's that constant purpose. I want to see the truth about you. I want to see the truth about the other. I believe in the last session there was a wonderful sentence that we want to see our brother as he is. And of course I won't be able to find it right away. But that's the purpose. I want to see the truth. In other words, I want to see things as they are in truth. That's the constant purpose. And that can give all the events a stable meaning. But it must accord one meaning to them all. Right? That's the meaning. I want to use this to remember the oneness. Perception cannot be in constant flux. That's chaotic. So perception cannot be in constant flux and make allowance for stability and meaning everywhere. It says fear is a judgment never justified. Right? Fear, it exists because in this dream it exists because one of the first things we experienced when we thought we separated from the oneness was fear. And we bring it with us. Excuse me. Fear is a judgment never justified. Its presence has no meaning. The only thing it's good for is to show you that you wrote a fearful script. And what he means by that is that you chose to believe you separated from oneness. That's all you did. You're not guilty of anything. You just wrote a fearful script. And you are afraid accordingly. So I wrote this script. Oh, I separated from God. That's the beginning of my script. And he says, and so because of that, you are afraid. You wander this world, as he says, uncertain, lonely, and in constant fear. So the presence of fear, it has no meaning except to show you that you wrote a fearful script. You chose the ego thought system. And you're afraid accordingly. But not because the thing you fear has fearful meaning in itself. All right? So when you get to the metaphysical meaning of it, I'm waiting for God to get me back for some kind of retribution, payback, punishment. He says that's all right. That's not. It's not true. He says that you're afraid, but not because the thing you fear, which is God, has a fearful meaning in itself. In himself, he has no fear. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's only in this dream that we are afraid of things because we chose to believe we separated from God. Paragraph 4. A common purpose is the only means whereby perception can be stabilized, and one interpretation given to the world and all experiences here. And this shared purpose is one judgment shared by everyone and everything you see. You do not have to judge, for you have learned one meaning. One meaning has been given everything, and you are glad to see it everywhere. It cannot change because you would perceive it everywhere, unchanged by circumstance. And so you offer it to all events and let them offer you stability. So this common purpose, all right, the idea of forgiveness. I want to see the truth. All right? I want to stop projecting and see the truth. In short, that's the process of forgiveness. That's the one constant purpose now. That's a common purpose. And it's the only means whereby perception can be stabilized. Perception can be stabilized because I want to see everything in the light of truth. I want to see everything in the light of truth. And one interpretation given to the world and all experiences here. So I want to see everything that happens in the light of truth. I want to see it as it really is. And this shared purpose is one judgment shared by everyone and everything you see. So when everything has this one purpose, there's only one judgment, and it's shared by everyone and everything you see. It's the judgment of the Holy Spirit. You never left the mind of God. You are not guilty. All right. It's the one judgment shared by everyone and everything you see. That's my purpose. I want to see everything that way. And this shared purpose is one judgment shared by everyone and everything you see. You do not have to judge, for you have learned one meaning has been given to everything, and you are glad to see it everywhere. One meaning has been given to everything, and you're glad to see it. Everything is reflecting the oneness to me, and you're happy about it. And it cannot change because you would perceive it everywhere. Because that's what I want now. I want to see correctly. I want to see it everywhere, unchanged by circumstance. Doesn't matter what the circumstance is. I can see the truth, if that's my purpose. And remember, you don't do it by yourself. You join with Jesus, Holy Spirit, the symbols that we use in the Course. It cannot change because you would perceive it everywhere, unchanged by circumstance. And so you offer it to all events and let them offer you stability. There's no more change. There's no more rocking and rolling. There's no more being turned upside down. Just, of course, stream of consciousness. I'm thinking back to the early 90s when a psychic that I knew, she said to me, it's as if you're in the middle of the river and your boat is going to be overturned. I said, well, that's a nice image. In other words, your life is going to be overturned. And unfortunately, she was right. Stuff hit the fan. All kinds of stuff. There was no stability. Absolutely. All stability was gone. And I was a student of the Course at the time, just a beginning little nub of a student in those days. But I do remember communicating with Jesus and Holy Spirit in my mind. And things began to adjust for the better, let's put it that way. Okay. And they've just been, you get your dips, like my anatomy teacher in massage school would say, life is like West Virginia. It goes up and down, it goes up and down. But always that golden thread heading toward the truth, heading toward the awareness, right? Heading toward the oneness. And everything brings you there when you're dedicated to that one purpose. Okay. Only a constant purpose can endow events with stable meaning. And in 4, a common purpose is the only means whereby perception can be stabilized. I have to get to that common purpose. I want to see correctly. Okay. Paragraph 5. Escape from judgment simply lies in this. All things have but one purpose, which you share with all the world. And nothing in the world can be opposed to it, for it belongs to everything as it belongs to you. In single purpose is the end of all ideas of sacrifice, which must assume a different purpose for the one who gains and him who loses. There could be no thought of sacrifice apart from this idea. It is this idea of different goals that makes perception shift and meaning change. In one united goal does this become impossible. For your dream makes interpretation stabilize and last. For your agreement, I don't know where I got the word dream. Okay then. For your agreement makes interpretation stabilize. Right? That one united goal. I unite with Jesus, with Holy Spirit, with the memory of who I am, with your higher self, all those things. Pick one that means unconditional love to you. You're surrounded by the memory of unconditional love. Right? You join with it, and you're willing to see in the light of that. And that's my purpose. I want to see the oneness. I want to see correctly. I want to see the truth. All those things mean the same thing. All right? And you share that with the world. That's as you go through the world. I want to see it correctly. I'm tired. Tired of shifting and changing and fighting and running and all the other things. Working hard. Toiling, as they say. All right. And nothing in the world can be opposed to it, for it belongs to everything as it belongs to you. All right, you have one purpose. And he says, and nothing can be opposed to it, because you're giving this to the whole world. For it belongs to everything. This purpose belongs to everything. Just like it belongs to you. The oneness belongs to you and everything else. So there's no idea of sacrifice. There's no idea of I get a little less, you get a little more, or I got to take this, I got to give up that. None of that. Everything is everything, as Carlos Santana would say. Everything is everything. And single purpose is the end of all ideas of sacrifice, which must assume a different purpose for the one who gains and the one who loses. Right? There can be no thought of sacrifice apart from this idea. Right? So there's no, I got to get mine. There's no one against the other, you or me. It's me searching for the oneness, allowing the oneness to arise in my mind and seeing it everywhere. It's for you as much as it is for me, because there's no separation. That's what I want to see. That's how I want my perception to be. I want to see you as you truly are. In one united goal paragraph 6, sentence 5. In one united goal, does this become impossible, the idea of sacrifice? For your agreement makes interpretation stable, stabilize, and last. Your agreement, you come together with all that is, right? The memory of all that is. And that makes perception stabilize. You can see everything through that filter. And then perception, it will last. It won't change. Paragraph 6. How can communication really be established while the symbols that are used mean different things? The Holy Spirit's goal gives one interpretation, meaningful to you and to your brother. Thus can you communicate with him and he with you. In symbols that you both can understand, the sacrifice of meaning is undone. All sacrifice entails the loss of your ability to see relationships among events. And looked at separately, they have no meaning, for there is no light by which they can be seen and understood. They have no purpose. And what they are for cannot be seen. In any thought of loss, there is no meaning. No one has agreed with you on what it means. It is a part of a distorted script which cannot be interpreted with meaning. It must be forever unintelligible. This is not communication. Your dark dreams are but the senseless, isolated scripts you write in sleep. You look not to separate dreams from meaning. Only dreams of pardon can be shared. They mean the same to both of you. So he's reiterating the idea that when I'm wandering through form, wandering through this world alone, right, there's all kinds of separate dreams. Right? And I don't have the ability to see the relationship among events and people. He says, you've sacrificed that ability, right? You've given it up by choosing to say, no, that's not me. I'm not part of the oneness. I'm not the offspring of the original creator. And when I walk around in that, he's just, as I say, he's reiterating that, as he was talking about in the first few paragraphs. He says, and in that kind of chaos, nothing has meaning, for there is no light by which they can be seen and understood. Right? They have no purpose. You're not communicating, he's saying. And just look at the word, communicate. I mean, communication is the exchange of ideas. So in true communication, it's the namaste. You know, however they interpret it, the light in me acknowledges the light in you. That's communication. And just the word itself, it's to be one with. To be unified with. All right. How can communication really be established when symbols mean different things? The Holy Spirit's goal gives one interpretation, meaningful to you and to your brother. Thus can you communicate with him and he with you. When I'm willing to see the truth about you, I'm able to communicate truly. I'm not talking about inform, which might happen, but this is metaphysical. Okay, this is in the essence of who you truly are. All sacrifice entails the loss of your ability to see relationships among events. Right? So when I give up something, I sacrifice. And the first thing I gave up was, the fact that I'm the Son of God. I'm the offspring of the original Creator. I said, oh no, that's not me. I sacrificed the Son of God, and it trickles into everything I do in form. So it entails a loss of my ability to see relationships among events. Right now everything is separate. I don't see the oneness. All right. So in any thought of loss, there's no meaning. He says, even though it seems so powerful, he goes, it really doesn't mean anything. No one has agreed with you on what it means. It is a part of a distorted script which cannot be interpreted with meaning. Right? This whole existence in form is a distorted script. And the only thing that gives it meaning is our joining with the Holy Spirit. Asking, help me to see it correctly. Okay? That's what he means by look not to separate dreams from meaning. Right? Don't look in the world because there's all separate dreams here. Everybody's got a different dream. All right? Only dreams of pardon can be shared. Pardon, another word for forgiveness. Dr. Wapnick would say that Helen Schuckman would use the word pardon when she needed a certain amount of syllables to keep the iambic pentameter going. But pardon is just a substitute for the word forgiveness. Only dreams of forgiveness can be shared. Otherwise, I got my dreams, you got yours. Right? East is east and west is west. And never the twain shall meet. Right? You go your way, I'll go my way. Don't think twice, it's all right. But only dreams of forgiveness can be shared. We see it with everything. I want to see it correctly. I want to stop my projections. And I want to see it correctly. That's what is shared with everything. Right? Only dreams of pardon can be shared. They mean the same to both of you. Right? Paragraph 7. I like the way this is stated. Do not interpret out of solitude. For what you see means nothing. It will shift in what it stands for, and you will believe the world is an uncertain place in which you walk in danger and uncertainty. It is but your interpretations which are lacking in stability, for they are not in line with what you really are. This is a state so seemingly unsafe that fear must arise. Do not continue thus, my brother. We have one interpreter, and through his use of symbols are we joined, so that they mean the same to all of us. Our common language lets us speak to all our brothers, and to understand with them forgiveness has been given to us all, and thus we can communicate again. forgiveness has been given to us all. Your innocence has returned in your memory, and thus we can communicate again. We can join with, we can accept and give the message of oneness. Because of our common language, the language of love, the language of oneness. Right? So he tells us in the beginning of the paragraph, don't do this by yourself. Don't do this with the ego self. The ego's going to all kinds of tricks. Do not interpret out of solitude. Don't do this by yourself. Join with Jesus. Join with the Holy Spirit. Join with whatever symbol of higher consciousness and unconditional love that you feel comfortable with. Okay? Do not interpret out of solitude. Help me to see this correctly. Help me to interpret what is going on. For what you see means nothing. If you do it by yourself, it's just the same old, same old. It will shift in what it stands for, and you will believe that the world is an uncertain place. All right? Uncertain, lonely, and in constant fear. And he just says it in different words here. You'll believe the world is an uncertain place in which you walk in danger and uncertainty. It is but your interpretations which are lacking in stability. Because everything changes. We make adjustments as we go along. All right? They used to say that was the mark of a good manager, especially a restaurant manager. You can change on the fly, as they say, as you're flying through the dining room. As you're flying through the kitchen, you can make adjustments. But those interpretations, they are lacking in stability, for they are not in line with what you really are. All right, so unless we are joined with the memory of who we are, all right, everything is unstable because it's not in line with who we are. You are a thought in the mind of God. You never left the mind that thought of you. And he says, do not continue thus, my brother. All right? Just words of wise. Do not continue thus, my brother. We have one interpreter. All right? The memory of who you are, the right mind, symbolized by Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And through his use of symbols, we are joined, right? So that they mean the same to all of us. So that he can use everything in the world that will bring us to the oneness. That's what means the same to us, the innocence. And our common language lets us speak to all our brothers. The innocence. The language of innocence, the language of oneness, lets us speak to all our brothers and to understand them and to understand with them. Forgiveness has been given to all of us. We're all innocent. We never left the mind of God. And thus, we can communicate again. We are back to the oneness, and we can communicate again. All right? The giving and receiving of everything, of total love. All right? With our one interpreter. All right? And that is the new interpretation. I join with the Holy Spirit. Help me to see this correctly. And communication will be restored. And it is a process. So we keep applying the process. Help me to see this. I'm willing to see the truth. I'm willing to see this person, place, or thing as it really is. And that's the new interpretation. It's just don't do it by yourself. Do not continue thus, my brother. Okay then. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for helping me to study. Let the course wash over you, as Dr. Wapnick would say. And I will see you in the next session.